Telos had watched many species across the stars. He was old, even by the standards of his own kind. The Veil Collective had sent him to observe thousands of civilizations over the centuries. He had seen empires rise and fall. He had watched peaceful worlds burn and violent ones find peace. Nothing surprised him anymore. Until he met the humans. The Galactic Assembly had asked Telos to spend one standard year aboard a human vessel. His mission was simple: watch them, study them, report back on whether humanity was ready to join the greater community of stars. Many elder races were nervous about these newcomers. Humans had only discovered faster-than-light travel 50 years ago. They were bobbies compared to species that had sailed between stars for millions of years. Telos expected to find them primitive. He expected to find them brutal. The report said humans had nearly destroyed their own world before escaping into space. They fought wars among themselves for centuries. They were loud, emotional, and unpredictable. What Telos found instead confused him deeply. The ship was called Horizon's Edge. It was a mid-sized frigate, nothing special by galactic standards. The captain was a man named Park. He was tall for a human, with a calm face and eyes that seemed to notice everything. When Telos first came aboard, Captain Park greeted him personally. He smiled and shook the observer's hand, a strange human custom that involved touching palms. "Welcome to our ship," Park said. "I hope you will be comfortable here. If you need anything at all, please ask." This was the first strange thing. Captains of other species did not greet observers themselves. They sent assistants. They kept their distance. Park treated Telos like a guest in his own home. The second strange thing was the meals. Every evening, Park invited his senior officers to eat together. He invited Telos as well. They sat around a table and shared food while talking about their day. They laughed at jokes that Telos did not understand. They argued about small things and forgot their arguments within minutes. The second in command was a woman named. She was shorter than the captain but carried herself like someone much larger. Her job was to manage the crew and handle combat situations. When she was not working, she taught fighting techniques to anyone who wanted to learn. Telos watched her teach the ship's cook how to throw a punch. He watched her show a young engineer how to escape from a chokehold. "Why do you teach them?" Telos asked her one day. "They are not soldiers." Looked at him with an expression he could not read. Everyone should know how to protect themselves, and to protect each other. This answer did not make sense to Telos. In the Veil Collective there were specialists for everything. Soldiers fought. Cooks cooked. Engineers built things. The idea of mixing these roles seemed wasteful and inefficient. But the humans did not seem to care about efficiency. They cared about each other in ways that Telos found difficult to understand. The ship's doctor was a man named. He was quiet and serious, with gentle hands that had healed hundreds of patients. Telos learned that had once been a soldier himself. He had seen combat and watched friends die. He became a doctor because he wanted to save lives instead of taking them. The chief engineer was Han. She was young for her position, barely 30 years old. But she knew the ship better than anyone. She talked to the engines like they were old friends. She stayed awake for days when something needed fixing. The other crew members called her a genius, but she just shrugged and said she liked solving problems. Days passed, then weeks. Telos filled his reports with observations, but he struggled to explain what he was seeing. The humans worked hard, but they also played hard. They celebrated birthdays and anniversaries. They mourned when they received bad news from home. They formed friendships that seemed unbreakable. Captain Park invited Telos to his office one evening. He poured 2 glasses of something he called tea. "You seem troubled," Park said. "Is there something we can help with?" Telos considered lying. Observers were supposed to remain neutral, but something about Park's honest face made him speak the truth. "I do not understand your species," Telos admitted. "You are not what I expected." Park smiled. "What did you expect?" "Violence, chaos, selfishness. Telos paused. The report said humans were dangerous. We can be, Park agreed. He sipped his tea. But dangerous is not the same as evil. We fight because we care about things, about people, about ideas. Sometimes we fight for the wrong reasons, but sometimes we fight for the right ones. Before Telos could respond, an alarm cut through the ship. Red lights flashed. A voice came through the speakers, urgent and afraid. Captain to the bridge. Emergency distress signal received. Park was moving before the message finished. Telos followed, his heart beating faster than it had in centuries. On the bridge, the crew had assembled quickly, was already at her station, her face hard as stone. A holographic display showed a small planet at the edge of neutral space, a colony world. The signal was coming from there. Reports, Park ordered. 3 hollow dreadnoughts in orbit, the tactical officer said. His name was a serious young man who rarely spoke unless necessary. They are deploying harvester drones to the surface. The colony shields have failed. Telos felt cold. The Hollow were a machine intelligence that consumed organic life. They were one of the greatest threats in the galaxy. No single ship could stand against 3 of their dreadnoughts. How many colonists? Park asked. Approximately 4,000. They are non-combatants. They were a peaceful species, mathematicians and artists. They had no weapons, no army. They were defenseless. Park looked at his crew. He did not give an order. He simply asked one question. Who is coming with me? Every hand on the bridge rose. Telos stared at them. They were going to die. They had to know they were going to die. And yet their hands were up, their faces determined. For the first time in 500 years, Telos felt something he had forgotten existed. Fear. The horizon's edge dropped out of faster-than-light travel like a stone falling into dark water. The colony world hung before them, blue and green and beautiful, but the beauty was dying. 3 massive ships circled above it like vultures waiting for their prey to stop breathing. Telos stood at the back of the bridge, trying to stay out of the way. His hands were shaking. He had seen many battles in his long life, but always from a safe distance, always as an observer who could leave whenever he wanted. This time was different. This time he was trapped on a ship full of humans who had chosen to fly straight into death. Captain Park sat in his chair at the center of the bridge. His face was calm, almost peaceful. He studied the tactical display with careful eyes. Analysis, he said quietly. His fingers danced across his console. The dreadnoughts are arranged in a triangle formation around the planet, standard hollow attack pattern. They have already launched approximately 200 harvester drones to the surface. Colony population is dropping. Current estimate, 3,800 survivors. 200 colonists dead in the time it took to arrive. Telos felt sick. Their weapons? Asked. Each dreadnought carries enough firepower to destroy a small moon. Their shields can absorb direct hits from capital ship cannons. Paused. We are by a factor of 5 to 1, minimum. Nodded slowly. She did not look afraid. None of them looked afraid. Telos could not understand this. Could they not see the numbers? Could they not understand what those numbers meant? Park turned to look at his chief engineer. How is our ship? Han was hunched over her station, her dark hair falling across her face. Engines are at full capacity. Weapons are charged. Shields are ready. She looked up and smiled, a wild and reckless smile that made Telos's blood run cold. We are as ready as we will ever be, Captain. Good. Park stood from his chair. He walked to the front of the bridge and stared out at the enemy ships. For a long moment he was silent. Then he spoke, and his voice was like iron. Open a channel to the Hollow fleet. The communications officer, a woman named, looked surprised. Sir, the Hollow do not negotiate. They have never responded to communication attempts. Open the channel. She obeyed. A soft beep indicated the channel was open. Park straightened his uniform and spoke clearly. Hollow vessels, This colony is under human protection. You will withdraw immediately. If you do not, we will engage and destroy you. This is your only warning." Silence answered him. The Hollow did not use words. They did not need to. Their response came in the form of weapons fire. The first shot struck the horizon's edge like a hammer striking glass. The ship screamed as its shields absorbed the impact. Telos was thrown from his feet. He hit the wall hard and tasted blood in his mouth. "Evasive action," shouted. "All hands to battle stations." What followed was chaos, but it was not the chaos Telos expected. It was organized, controlled. Every human on the bridge moved with purpose, their voices sharp and clear even as the ship shook around them. Park returned to his chair. "Return fire, target their weapons arrays. We need to slow them down." The horizon's edge answered with everything it had. Missiles streaked through the void. Energy beams cut across the darkness. The human ship danced between enemy fire with impossible grace, its pilot pushing the engines beyond their limits. Telos watched the battle from his corner, his old eyes struggling to follow the speed of it all. The humans were not fighting like any species he had observed before. They did not hold formation. They did not follow predictable patterns. They adapted to every attack, changed tactics every few seconds, covered each other's weaknesses as if they could read each other's minds. An explosion rocked the bridge. Sparks flew from a nearby console and Ensign Lee was thrown backward. Fire caught on her uniform, orange flames licking at her arm. Without a sound, she rolled on the floor to put out the fire, then stood and returned to her station. Her hands were burned, red and raw. She did not stop working. "Shields at 60%, reported. His voice was steady but sweat ran down his face. "Enemy Dreadnought 2 has taken damage. Their forward weapons are offline." "Focus fire on Dreadnought 2, Park ordered. "Can you give me more power to the main cannon?" "I can try," replied. Her fingers flew across her controls. "Rerouting power from secondary systems. You will have 30 seconds of increased output. After that, we might lose life support on Deck 4. "Do it." The ship roared. A beam of white light cut through space and struck the damaged dreadnought. The machine vessel shuddered, then broke apart in a silent explosion of metal and fire. The bridge erupted in cheers. Telos could not believe what he was seeing. They had destroyed a hollow dreadnought. A single frigate had killed one of the most feared weapons in the galaxy. But the battle was not over. The remaining 2 dreadnoughts turned their full attention to the horizon's edge. The ship shook again and again as hits landed against its weakening shields. "Shields at 30%, said. His voice was finally starting to crack. "We cannot take many more hits." Park did not hesitate. "Helm, take us in close, point-blank range." The navigation officer, turned to stare at him. "Sir, that is suicide." "It is the only way to hurt them before they hurt us. Do it." Nodded once and obeyed. The horizon's edge dove toward the nearest dreadnought like a bird attacking a giant. At this range, their weapons could do real damage. But at this range, the Hollow could do real damage too. The next few minutes were the longest of Telos's life. Explosions everywhere, fire in the corridors, the screams of wounded crew members echoing through the speakers. But the humans kept fighting. They kept pushing. They refused to stop. When the second dreadnought finally exploded, taking a piece of the horizon's edge with it, Telos realized something important. He had been asking the wrong question all along. He had been asking why humans were willing to die for strangers, but that was not the right question. The right question was this: what kind of species would not? The third dreadnought was retreating now, damaged and afraid. The humans had won. Against all odds, against all logic, they had won. But looking at the burning bridge and the bleeding crew, Telos knew the battle was far from over. The colonists were still on the planet below. The harvester drones were still killing them. And Captain Park was already giving new orders. "Prepare a ground team. We are going down there to get them out." Telos closed his eyes. He had never believed in human gods, but in that moment he found himself praying to them anyway. The drop shuttle fell through the atmosphere like a meteor wrapped in fire. Inside, 20 human soldiers sat strapped to their seats, their faces hidden behind combat helmets. Lieutenant Shin stood at the front, holding onto a metal bar as the shuttle shook around him. Telos had asked to come along. He did not know why. Perhaps he needed to see this with his own eyes. Perhaps he was tired of watching from safe distances. Whatever the reason, Captain Park had allowed it. Now Telos sat among the soldiers, feeling very small and very old. "Listen up," said. His voice was calm but firm. "The colonists have gathered in the central shelter. That is 3 kilometers from our landing zone. Between us and them are approximately 100 harvester drones. Our job is simple. We kill the drones, we get the colonists, we bring them home." Simple, Telos almost laughed. There was nothing simple about this. A soldier sitting next to him removed her helmet to adjust something inside it. Telos recognized her as Sergeant. During the voyage, she had seemed quiet and unremarkable. She spent most of her time reading or exercising alone. Telos had barely noticed her. Now, looking at her face, he saw something different. Her eyes were cold and focused. Her jaw was tight. This was not the same woman who had quietly eaten dinner in the corner of the mess hall. This was something else entirely. 30 seconds to landing, the pilot announced. Put her helmet back on. All around Telos, weapons were checked one final time. Prayers were whispered. One soldier kissed a small photograph before tucking it into his chest pocket. The shuttle hit the ground hard. The doors opened. Smoke and ash poured inside. "Move," shouted. The soldiers poured out into hell. The colony was burning. Buildings that had once been homes were now blackened shells. The air was thick with dust and the smell of something Telos did not want to think about. In the distance, he could hear screaming. The first harvester drone appeared within seconds. It was a machine about the size of a human, but shaped like a spider with too many legs. Its body was covered in blades and needles designed to cut and collect organic material. Sergeant shot it twice in what might have been its head. It collapsed in a shower of sparks. "Keep moving," she said quietly. "Do not stop for anything." They ran. Telos ran with them, his old legs burning with effort. Around him, the humans fought like demons. They shot down drones with precise aim. They used knives when their guns ran dry. They used their bare hands when their knives broke. A young private named was fighting beside Telos. He was barely 20 years old, with a round face that still held traces of childhood. He killed 3 drones in 10 seconds, his movements fast and brutal. When a 4th drone grabbed his leg, he jammed his rifle into its chest and pulled the trigger until it stopped moving. "Are you okay?" asked Telos, pulling him to his feet. "I am not a soldier," Telos said stupidly. "I should not be here." Grinned, blood running down his face from a cut on his forehead. "None of us should be here, but here we are." They reached the shelter after what felt like hours, but was probably only 20 minutes. The building was large and strong, designed to protect the colonists from natural disasters. It had not been designed to protect them from harvester drones. The doors were sealed, banged on them with his fist. "This is Lieutenant Shin of the human vessel Horizon's Edge. We are here to rescue you. Open the doors." For a long moment nothing happened. Then slowly the doors slid open. Telos had never seen in person before. They were tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large eyes that seemed to reflect every source of light. They were trembling. Many of them were crying. Children clung to their parents. Elderly sat on the ground, too tired or too scared to stand. A woman stepped forward. She might have been a leader of some kind. Her voice was shaking when she spoke. "You came. We sent the signal days ago. We thought no one was coming." "We came," said simply. "Now we need to move. Our shuttle is waiting." The evacuation began. Soldiers spread out around the shelter, forming a protective circle. They moved as quickly as they could, but they were not built for running. They stumbled. They fell. Soldiers picked them up and carried them. Sergeant lifted a child onto her back. The child was small, maybe 4 or 5 years old. She stared at the human with enormous frightened eyes. "Why did you come?" the child asked in a tiny voice. Did not slow down. She kept running, the child bouncing on her back. "Because you needed us." The drones found them before they reached the shuttle. Dozens of them, pouring out of the ruins like metal insects. The soldiers formed a line and held them back while the colonists ran. Telos watched in horror as humans fell. One soldier took a blade through his shoulder but kept firing with his other arm. Another was dragged down by 3 drones at once. His squad mates pulled him free, killing the machines with savage fury. Was hit. A drone blade cut across his side, opening a wound that bled freely. He pressed one hand against it and kept shooting with the other. "Keep moving," he shouted. "Do not stop, get them to the shuttle." They fought their way back meter by meter. Bodies fell. Blood painted the ash-covered ground, but the colonists were moving. They were almost there. Private reached the shuttle first. He helped the climb inside, lifting children and carrying those too weak to walk. When a drone tried to follow them in, he met it with his rifle butt, smashing it against the hull until it stopped moving. "Is that everyone?" the pilot shouted. Counted heads. His face was gray from blood loss. 3 soldiers missing. "Take over, I am going back." "Sir, you can barely stand." "I am going back." He went back. Telos never saw what happened next. He only saw return 5 minutes later, carrying 1 soldier over his shoulder while 2 others limped behind him. All 3 were wounded. 1 was barely conscious. "Now we go," said and collapsed. The shuttle lifted off as more drones arrived. They clawed at the hull, trying to find a way inside. The pilot cursed and pushed the engines harder, climbing toward the sky and the wounded ship waiting above. Telos looked around the crowded shuttle. Soldiers sat bleeding and exhausted, clutched each other and wept. A human medic was already working on, trying to stop the bleeding with steady hands. The child was still clinging to Sergeant, had removed her helmet now. Her face was covered in sweat and dirt and blood, but she was smiling softly at the child. "You are safe now," she said. "I promise." The child buried her face and shoulder and cried. And Telos finally understood. It was not that humans did not feel fear. They felt it as deeply as anyone. It was that they refused to let their fear stop them from doing what they believed was right. That was why the stars feared them. The horizon's edge was dying. Telos could feel it in the shaking of the floors and the groaning of the metal walls. Emergency lights cast everything in a red glow that made the ship look like it was bleeding from the inside. The shuttle had docked 10 minutes ago. The rescued were being moved to the cargo bay, the only area of the ship still fully pressurized. Medical teams were everywhere, treating the wounded while trying not to slip on the blood that covered the floors. Telos made his way to the bridge. He had to hold onto the walls to keep from falling as the ship shook again and again. The 3rd hollow dreadnought had returned. It had brought friends. When he reached the bridge, Telos stopped in the doorway. The room was half destroyed. Smoke hung in the air. Sparks fell from damaged consoles like strange rain, but the crew was still at their stations. Some of them were bleeding. Some of them had burns on their hands and faces. None of them had stopped working. Captain Park stood at the center of it all. His uniform was torn and stained with blood that might have been his own. His face was pale and tired, but his voice was still strong. "Status report," answered from his cracked tactical console. His left arm was in a makeshift sling, but his right hand still moved across the controls. 3 hollow dreadnoughts now in pursuit, distance closing. They will be in firing range in 4 minutes. Shields gone, they failed 2 minutes ago. Weapons. Main cannon is offline. We have 2 missile launchers and point defense guns. That is all. Park nodded slowly. He did not look defeated. He looked like a man doing math in his head. Talk to me. Han was crawling out from under her engineering console, her hands black with grease and blood. A deep cut on her cheek was bleeding freely, but she ignored it. I have an idea, she said. It is crazy, it might kill us all. Tell me. She pulled up a schematic on the one screen that still worked. Our secondary reactor. If I overload it and eject it at the right moment, it will explode with the force of a small nuclear weapon. Get one of those dreadnoughts close enough and we can take it out. What happens to us? Hesitated. The explosion will damage our primary reactor. We will lose most of our remaining power. Life support will fail within 30 minutes. Engines will be at 10% at best. But we will survive the blast. Probably, maybe, I think so. Park looked at her for a long moment. Then he smiled. It was a real smile, warm and full of trust. Do it. Nodded and ran toward the engine room, shouting orders to her team as she went. The next 3 minutes felt like hours. The hollow dreadnoughts grew larger on their weapons charging for a final devastating attack. The horizon's edge limped through space, leaking air and fire from a dozen wounds. Doctor worked in the medical bay without stopping. He had been operating for 6 hours straight. His hands should have been shaking from exhaustion, but they were steady as stone. 3 patients lay before him at once. He moved between them with impossible speed, cutting and stitching and injecting. A young medic named was assisting him. She was the same communications officer from the bridge. When medical staff had fallen, she had left her station to help wherever she was needed. This one is losing too much blood, she said, her voice tight with fear. Did not look up from his current patient. Clamp the artery, exactly where I showed you. You can do this. His hands shook as she worked, but she did it. The bleeding slowed. Good, said quietly. Now hold pressure while I finish here. On the bridge, the moment arrived. Dreadnought 1 is entering optimal range, announced. Park leaned forward. Now. From somewhere deep in the ship, there was a sound like a giant taking a breath. Then the secondary reactor launched from the horizon's edge like a bullet from a gun. It flew straight and true, directly into the path of the lead dreadnought. The explosion was silent in the vacuum of space, but Telos could feel it through the deck plates, a wave of force and fire that consumed everything in its path. The dreadnought vanished. Pieces of it flew outward in all directions, some of them striking the other hollow ships. The horizon's edge shook violently. Lights went out. Emergency systems screamed warnings in a dozen different languages. For a moment, everything was dark and silent. Then the backup lights came on, dim and flickering. Report, Park said calmly. Dreadnought 1 destroyed. Dreadnoughts 2 and 3 have taken significant damage. They are retreating. Laughed, a sound of pure disbelief. They are running away. The bridge erupted in weak cheers. People hugged each other. Some of them cried. But Park was not celebrating. He was looking at the damage reports scrolling across his screen. How many did we lose? He asked quietly. The cheering stopped, pulled up the casualty list. Her face was hard as she read the numbers. 23 dead, 46 wounded, 15 critical. She paused. The ship is not going to make it home without major repairs. We are drifting. 23. Telos let that number sink in. 23 humans who had been alive this morning. 23 families that would receive terrible news. 23 empty seats at dinner tables. 23 voices that would never be heard again. And for what? For 4,000 strangers they had never met. Navigator O spoke up from her station. Her arm was broken, wrapped in a temporary cast. I have calculated our drift. If we can maintain 10% engine power, we will reach the nearest friendly station in 6 days. Life support will be close, but we can make it. Then we make it, Park said. All hands, this is the captain. The battle is over. We won. Now begins the hard part. Keep each other alive, help each other. We are going home. He cut the channel and sank into his chair. For the first time since the battle began, he looked truly tired. Telos approached him slowly. The observer did not know what to say. Words seemed inadequate. Captain Park. Park looked up. Observer Telos, I am glad you survived. Why did you do this? The question burst out of Telos before he could stop it. These colonists are not your people. This was not your fight. You gained nothing. You lost 23 crew members. Your ship is destroyed. Why? Park was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was soft. When I was young, my grandmother told me a story. She said that when you see someone drowning, you do not stop to ask if they can pay you. You do not check if they are from your country or if they believe in your God. You jump in and save them, because that is what it means to be human. He looked out at the stars, at the burning debris of their enemies, at the distant light of home. I jumped, my crew jumped with me, that is all. Telos stared at him. In 500 years, he had never met anyone like this man. He had never met anyone like these humans. The galaxy should be afraid of you, Telos said quietly. Park smiled sadly. The galaxy should learn from us. Perhaps Telos thought it should do both. The great chamber of the Veil Collective was older than most stars. Its walls were made of crystal that had been grown over millions of years. Light filtered through them in patterns that told the history of 1,000 civilizations. Here, the elders gathered to hear reports from across the galaxy. Here, decisions were made that shaped the fate of entire species. Telos stood before them, feeling smaller than he had in centuries. 12 elders sat in a semicircle of ancient chairs. They were his own kind, members of the Veil Collective, beings who had watched the universe unfold since before humanity's ancestors had climbed down from trees. Their faces were patient and calm. They had all the time in the world. Begin your report, the first elder said. Her voice was like wind through dry leaves. Telos had prepared 1,000 words, careful analysis, strategic observations, psychological profiles, everything the elders would want to know about humanity. He threw all of it away. The humans are not what we expected, he said. They are not what anyone expected. Explain, another elder requested. Telos closed his eyes. In his mind, he saw the bridge of the horizon's edge burning. He saw Lieutenant carrying wounded soldiers through ash and fire. He saw Sergeant promising safety to a child she had never met. He saw Captain Park asking who wanted to join him in death. I was sent to observe whether humanity was ready for the galactic community, Telos said. I was supposed to find their weaknesses, their threats, the ways they might be controlled or contained if necessary. And what did you find? The first elder asked. I found that I had been asking the wrong questions. The elders exchanged glances. This was not the report they had expected. Telos continued. The humans are afraid. I watched them tremble before battle. I saw terror in their eyes as the hollow advanced. Their hands shook. Their voices cracked. They are not fearless. They are not superhuman. They feel every moment of pain and fear as deeply as any species. Then why are they considered dangerous? An elder asked. Because they fight anyway. Silence fell over the chamber. The elders waited. I watched a crew of 160 humans fly into certain death to save 4,000 strangers. They were not ordered to do this. They were not forced. They chose it. Every single one of them raised their hand when the captain asked who would come. Telos felt his voice growing stronger as he spoke. The memories were too powerful to suppress. I watched a young soldier hold a corridor alone for 11 minutes while harvester drones tried to break through. He was wounded. He was terrified. When I asked him later how he did it, he said he thought about his younger sister back on Earth. He could not let anything past him that might one day reach her. The enemy was nowhere near Earth, an elder pointed out. It did not matter. He was not thinking about logic. He was thinking about love. The word hung in the air. Love, such a simple word, such a dangerous one. I watched a doctor operate on 3 patients at once while the deck shook beneath him. He had been a soldier once. He had seen friends die. He became a healer so he could save lives instead of taking them. He saved 27 lives that day, 27 people who would have died without him. This is impressive, the first elder admitted, but not fearsome. Telos shook his head. You are not listening. It is not any single human that is dangerous. It is what they become together. It is what they will do for each other. It is what they will do for anyone they decide to protect. He stepped forward, breaking protocol. He did not care. The Hollow calculated perfectly. They had superior numbers, superior firepower, superior position. By every mathematical measure they should have won. They did not account for one thing. What was that? Humans being human. The elders were silent now. They were beginning to understand. You cannot negotiate with this, Telos said. You cannot threaten it. You cannot buy it or trick it or contain it. When humans decide something matters to them, they will throw themselves against any enemy. They will sacrifice everything. They will keep coming until they are dead. Every last one of them. Surely they must have limits, an elder said, but his voice was uncertain. I thought so too. I kept waiting for them to break, to retreat, to save themselves. They never did. They saved the colonists. They saved each other. And then they limped home through space with a broken ship and 23 dead friends, and when I asked them why, do you know what the captain said? No one spoke. He said his grandmother taught him that when you see someone drowning, you jump in and save them. You do not ask questions. You do not calculate cost. You just jump. Telos took a breath. His next words would change everything. He knew this. He said them anyway. My recommendation is this: do not make enemies of humanity. Do not threaten what they love. Do not touch what they have chosen to protect. They are small. They are fragile. They live such brief, burning lives. And they are the most dangerous thing this galaxy has ever known. The first elder leaned forward. What should we do? Learn from them, Telos said simply. They are young. They are foolish. They make terrible mistakes. But they understand something we have forgotten. They understand that life is precious because it ends. They understand that love is real because it hurts. They understand that courage is not the absence of fear, but the choice to act despite it. He paused one final time. I have watched civilizations for 500 years. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have never seen anything like them. And I do not think I ever will again. The chamber remained silent as Telos finished his report. The elders would discuss his words for many years to come. Some would agree with him, some would not, but none of them would ever look at humanity the same way again. Far away on a planet called Earth, in a city called Sol, a small garden was growing. They had sent a gift, a stone from there inscribed with 23 names. It sat among flowers that bloomed in colors from a distant world, a permanent reminder of what humans had given. Admiral Park visited the memorial once a year. He never stayed long. There was always another ship that needed a captain, always another distant signal calling for help. Sergeant had retired from active duty. She now trained new soldiers, teaching them the same lesson she had learned on a burning colony world. Protect the people beside you. Protect the people who cannot protect themselves. Doctor returned to medicine. He opened a hospital that treated anyone, regardless of species or ability to pay. His waiting room was always full. Han kept engineering. She built better ships, safer ships, ships that could survive battles that should have destroyed them. Every design included one special feature: extra space in the cargo hold, just in case there were refugees who needed rescue. And Lieutenant Shin, his scars still visible across his side, was given command of a new vessel. He called it grandmother's promise. The galaxy watched, the galaxy waited, and slowly, one species at a time, the galaxy began to understand. Humans were strange, humans were reckless, humans were impossibly, wonderfully, terrifyingly kind. And that was why the stars feared them. That was why the stars loved them too.